Part 57. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 561. Charlotte Lingling, although since her defeat to Orgrim in the Battle of Butter Island, her performance plummeted, and her IQ even dropped. Everyone was dumbfounded, overwhelmed by Orgrim. But, she is not an idiot after all. It's just that Orgrim broke his courage and lost that pattern. Previously, she had been shrouded in the shadow of war brought by Orgrim. Therefore, there was a big shadow in her heart, and she couldn't turn around many things, or in other words, she didn't dare to think about it like this. Not long ago, the Warhammer pirates declared war on the Whitebeard pirates. The shadow of war that had been hanging over her head and the pressure brought by Orgrim dissipated a lot. This time, she is no longer in the game, and can observe and think about many things as an outsider. As for Orgrim, the stuck point is also very precise. After the Warhammer pirates and the Whitebeard pirates declared war, that informant letter was delivered into the hands of Charlotte Lingling. Many times, there are some things that you just can't understand no matter how you think about them. However, if there is such a trigger point and an opportunity appears, people can often break through the fog. This is the aha moment. Charlotte Lingling had been enlightening before, but she just couldn't figure out anything. Until I saw Orgrim's letter. Her first thought was, of course, that the letter was ridiculous. Thinking it was some despicable trick by Orgrim. But after just 3 or 5 breaths, Charlotte Lingling's expression turned gloomy. She began to recall all the things that had happened in the past few years. The more I think about it, the more I feel something is wrong. There's something wrong with Katakuri, and there's something wrong with that red-haired Shanks. On the surface, everything seemed reasonable, but that was because she was in the game. Looking outside the game, everything seems to be a conspiracy. Katakuri has changed since Deifuku's death. The funny thing is that I have never figured this out. In the end, I relied on that damn Orgrim to understand it all. However, Charlotte Lingling still had some doubts. Just now, that was her last temptation. She was testing Katakuri and mentioned the red hair thing. Katakuri was too calm, and the red-haired guy was too cooperative. If it were you, standing in the red-haired position, what would you do here? There is no doubt that it will cost more. The change of plan and the change of situation should be beyond their expectations. Shanks has no place in the New World, and the outcome of their alliance is uncertain. As a pirate, how should I choose between the interests in front of me and the interests in the future that I don't know whether I can realize? Of course, you have to eat the meat in your mouth first. Who knows if they can defeat Kaido? But Shanks didn't make any demands, as if he would be the same if it were Kaido. This is somewhat unreasonable. But why? Judging from the information given by Orgrim, it seems reasonable. Because Shanks had no real intention of joining forces with her. So, whether it's Orgrim or Kaido, it doesn't matter who the opponent is used as a cover for. Even if it's Whitebeard or Sengoku, it doesn't mean much. The one he has to deal with all the time is me, Charlotte Lingling. Therefore, he has no intention and meaning of asking me for any benefits that he can get now, because as long as his plan succeeds, everything I, Charlotte Lingling, have now will fall into his hands. In hand. As for Katakuri, Charlotte Lingling could already understand his thoughts at this time. Ever since Deifu died, ever since that conflict. Her mother and her second son are no longer the same person. Katakuri wanted revenge, but he seemed to have no hope of revenge against Orgrim. Therefore, he wanted to change ships, red-haired, it was the ship he chose. All this is reasonable. So, Charlotte Lingling is very angry. Pero, the only one I can trust now is you, Charlotte Lingling said softly. Pero swallowed his saliva and said loyally, Mom, this may not be true. Although it doesn't seem like a joke, it is. I know, That's why I didn't do it now, Charlotte Lingling said. Her tone was somewhat gentle, although she already believed the explosion news given by Orgrim. But, after all, there was no evidence, neither Katakuri nor the red hair. No sinister intentions were revealed. Charlotte Lingling was not a real fool. How could she directly destroy her second son and allies just because of a letter from Orgrim? This special, you haven't started a war with Kaido yet, okay. Cut off your own arm first? Isn't that too retarded? However, we have to make preparations. Conspiracy is something that we are afraid of seeing through. Now, Charlotte Lingling, it has been seen through. After this, if everything is calm and their plan is followed, Charlotte Lingling will not make an attack. Perhaps, this is really a despicable trick of the guy from Orgrim. But, if the red-haired and Katakuri really has some plans, then she must be able to deal with it. At this time, Katakuri is no longer trustworthy. Even among the many sons and daughters, it is difficult for her to she found a guy she could trust. After thinking for a long time, she thought of Pero. Katakuri was deeply loved by her younger brothers and sisters. Love and respect. Charlotte Lingling was not sure how many people were on his side. But there was only one person who could not be on Katakuri's side. That's Pero. As the captain of the Big Mom Pirates, Totland is the queen of all nations. Although Charlotte Lingling has become somewhat mentally retarded to the outside world since the Battle of Butter Island, but internally, he is still very resourceful. She knew very well that Pero and Katakuri were fighting openly and secretly. Even, there is her arrangement in this. The purpose is to balance the power struggle within the Big Mom Pirates. It would not be a good thing for her if she allowed one family to dominate. Because of this, Charlotte Lingling handed over all the external forces of the Big Mom Pirates to Pero, used to check and balance Katakuri at certain times. Those in power all like to play this trick. Charlotte Lingling, who formed the pirate nation, naturally does the same. Precisely because she knew this and understood this, she was certain that Pero could never conspire with Katakuri in this matter. Katakuri, such a cautious guy, couldn't risk failure by talking to Pero about such a thing. Therefore, now the only person Charlotte Lingling can trust and has the ability to compete with Katakuri and deal with this conspiracy happens to be Pero. After putting these thoughts away, Charlotte Lingling said, Pero, you are my eldest son. My affection for you is much higher than that of the other children. Over the years, your performance has, not as good as Katakuri, but I still give you many important things and power. This is my love for you. Pero nodded with some emotion, but he didn't believe a word in his heart. Although he doesn't have Katakuri's high IQ, he's not an idiot, right? Otherwise, even with Charlotte Lingling's special arrangements, he would not have been able to fight Katakuri for so long. Yes, Mom, Pero responded. This time, it's up to you, the power of the Fur tribe, the power of the outside world. You have to be prepared to help me keep an eye on Katakuri and that damn Shanks. If they show any signs of disappointment, we must make a strong counterattack, suppress them in the shortest possible time, and nip all signs in the bud, Charlotte Lingling said in a deep voice. It is definitely impossible for Katakuri to communicate this kind of thing with her younger brothers and sisters in advance. After all, if anyone leaks the news, it will be over. So, as long as they react quickly enough and can suppress Katakuri and Shanks at the beginning, then, the loss of strength to the Big Mom Pirates will not be big, and it will not even cause division. On the contrary, if they delay, the procrastination left time and opportunity for her children to choose sides, and the Big Mom Pirates were in bad luck. No matter what the outcome was in the end, the Big Mom Pirates would suffer heavy losses. Pero nodded quickly and agreed. Then, Charlotte Lingling and Pero discussed the specific arrangements and plans. After 3 or 2 hours, Pero slowly he walked out of the gate of the castle. He was very surprised. He had indeed thought of many things before, such as Katakuri and Shanks joining forces. He had all guessed about these. Therefore, what he really thought in his heart was not as flustered as he had been when he was inside. But he was still a little surprised. Surprised that Katakuri was playing so big. He thought that Katakuri would at most do some damage to Big Mom C during the war. The actions of the pirate group to feed the red-haired pirates, and finally at the critical moment, they directly broke away from the Big Mom pirates and stole the fruits of victory. Who would have thought that Katakuri was ready to directly join forces with the red-haired pirates to annex Big Mom pirate group? Compared with Katakuri's ambition, ability, and courage, Pero felt a little ashamed again. He hesitated for 2 years and only dared to make small moves. Until now, he has not really made up his mind. Look at your brother again. If it weren't for that bastard Orgrim, Katakuri might actually be able to do it. Compared with him, I am far behind. Thinking of this, Pero became furious. I must win you once. Since you are targeting your mother, let's see who can win this time. Pero finally made up his mind. He doesn't stand on Katakuri and Charlotte Lingling's team. He has to stand up for himself. You, Katakuri, dare to start this hunt with your mother as your prey. Then, I, Pero, have nothing to fear? I must capture this prey. Back in the candy house, Pero took out his phone bug, fiddled with it a few times, and called out. Not long after, the phone bug was picked up. A slightly sinister laughter came from inside. Ha 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 ha, Pero, do you understand? Pero's eyes darkened and he said, Crocodile, have you ever won a red head? That's right, the person on the other side of the phone was none other than Crocodile. Crocodile, however, did not answer this question. He just smiled evilly and said, I am entering a new world. I don't know, are you there? Interested in having tea with me? Certainly Pero also had a gloomy smile on his lips, and responded softly. I'm afraid, Charlotte Lingling would never have dreamed of this. Her Charlotte family is not only the birthplace of Katakuri. Even his eldest son Pero is a traitor. Even Orgrim did not expect this. Originally, he told Charlotte Lingling the news just because he wanted to. It's just to add trouble to the red-haired guy. He was very much looking forward to it. The original drama of the Big Mom pirates teaming up with the red-haired pirates to fight against the Beast pirates would turn into a 3-party war. As a result, it seems that it is going to evolve now. Will it lead to more intense chaos? I wonder if Boss Kaido can bear it? Anyway, Charlotte Lingling seems to be unable to bear it. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 562. This time in the New World War, not everyone is together to launch a cluster attack. It was a war spread across various sea areas. At this time, he was on a pirate ship in a certain sea area of the New World. Beckman was sitting on a sun lounger on the deck, basking in the sun. Next to him sat the little girl Reiju. Reiju was stirring the juice, while Beckman was looking at the newspaper in his hand. There was no particularly important news in the newspapers, they were just describing the chaos of the New World. Warhammer pirates, contact with Whitebeard pirates in various sea areas, and battles broke out. Mr. Beckman, would you like to try it? Reiju asked with a smile after stirring the juice in her hand. Beckman put the newspaper away, nodded, took the juice and said, of course. After Beckman started drinking the juice, Reiju continued to stir the second glass of juice, and asked Mr. Beckman, where are we going? Palm Island, Beckman said softly. Is there anything there? Reiju asked again. Well, there are people from the Whitebeard pirates. Beckman nodded and smiled. Reiju stopped asking any more. As for the people of the Whitebeard pirates, they must not be Mr. Beckman's opponents, right? At this moment, the table placed next to Beckman, the phone rang. Beckman raised his eyebrows, put down the juice in his hand, then picked up the phone, picked it up and asked, "What's the matter, Plank?" "Second master, something unexpected happened, something happened to Dai Peng," Plank said in a deep voice. Beckman frowned and asked directly what happened. Was she defeated so quickly? Almost. Dai Peng had already fought with that guy Sachi on Ninkelan Island and gained the advantage, but the Navy's G-5 unit appeared, and Jun and Fujitora were all there, and Ninkelan the island was taken away by the Navy, Plank explained. Beckman's brows slowly relaxed. In this case, it would be nothing. Ninkelan Island is an island located in the gateway waters of the New World. It is used by the Whitebeard pirates to connect to Fishman Island. In fact, each major pirate group has its own flags planted around the New World portal sea. The purpose is to make it convenient when entering and exiting the New World. Warhammer Pirates also has one. Katarina Dupon's mission this time is to attack Ninkelan Island, the territory of the Whitebeard pirates in the waters at the gateway to the New World. After seizing it, cut off the Whitebeard pirates' escape route from the New World. Perhaps, that guy from Newgate will not choose to withdraw from the New World. Even if the war is at a huge disadvantage, he will continue to fight. However, what he thinks is his business, and Beckman still has to do it. On Ninkelan Island, what was left behind was Sachi, the captain of the 4th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates. He and Dai Peng had been in contact and fighting 2 days ago. But it seems that he is no match for Dai Peng. As for Dai Peng, he was also unlucky. Before Sachi could be killed here, the Navy's G-5 masters appeared. Dai Peng was not unlucky enough to be caught by the Navy, was he? Beckman asked softly. No, I was injured a little, but I still escaped, Plank said. It's okay to tell her not to worry about Ninkelan Island. The Navy controls it and we control it. There's not much difference. After all, it's impossible to let Whitebeard leave. As for the benefits captured by the Navy, we can't take care of it now. Let's ask Dai Peng to go and support Enilu and Lucky, Beckman ordered. Clear. Gangplank responded quickly. At the same time, on Ninkelan Island, the G-5 Navy under Jun was sweeping away the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates who had not been able to evacuate from the island. Sitting on the dock of the port above, Jun is holding a cigarette in her mouth, looking very heroic. She is holding a phone bug in her hand and is reporting the situation to the Warring States Marshal. Ninkelan Island is already in our hands, but the captain of the 4th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, as well as Katarina Dupon, have all escaped, Jun said to the phone bug. The Warring States Marshal on the opposite side did not pursue anything, and said with a smile, just take the island. G-5 will defend the island from now on. At the same time, according to the original plan, the plan is to continue to seize the pirate islands near the New World Gateway Sea. I want the Navy to control the power here and become the shackles of their pirates. There are not enough people. Marshal Boss Jun exhaled a puff of smoke and said. Kuzan and Porisalino have entered the New World and will support you soon, Marshal Warring States said softly. That's pretty much it, hang up. Jun said with a smile. Then, before Marshal Sengoku could react, she hung up the phone. At the same time, Fujitora, who was standing next to him, laughed and asked, if you hang up the Marshal's phone like this, won't the Marshal be angry? Jun took out the cigarette he was biting at the corner of his mouth, flicked the ashes, waved his hand and said, Marshal, he has a broad mind, how can he care about these details with a little woman like me? What to do next? Target the Warhammer pirates? Sabury Island? The Thundering Enel and Rob Lucci are both on that island, Fujitora smiled and asked. Sabury Island is the island of the Warhammer pirates in the New World Gateway Sea. Jun shook his head and said, no, let's go to Totland. As soon as she finished speaking, Fujitora smiled, and everyone was dumbfounded. Didn't the Marshal say in the phone call just now that he wants us to continue to seize the island territories of the major pirate groups in the New World Portal Sea according to the original plan? Will it form the shackles that will control this place in the future? Didn't you promise well? Why did you hang up the phone, Bug, blow out a puff of smoke, and go directly to the waters of Totland? That's where the war is currently hottest. That's right, neither Edward Newgate nor Hosgarot Orgrim appears on the sea now. Although the war between the Whitebeard pirates and the Warhammer pirates has spread. But it's not that intense. On the other hand, in the Totland Sea area, I am afraid that there will be a war soon. Kaido of the Beast Pirates has no intention of fighting with Charlotte Lingling. He seems to be pressing towards Cake Island in one go. As a senior general and core member of the Navy, how could Jun not know that red-haired Shanks was also there preparing to cause trouble? That sea area will probably become the first hotspot of the war before long. Totland? What about our mission? Fujitora smiled and frowned slightly and asked. Jun grinned and said, "Didn't Marshal Boss just say that, Kuzan and Porisalino are already in the New World? I think they are not familiar with the New World. It is not good for them to run around, so they might as well complete the follow-up tasks for us, and we G-5, as a local snake in the New World, how can he paddle around in corners like this? I bet the support you asked the Marshal for just now is actually a successor?" Fujitora smiled and complained in his heart. Before he could speak, Jun's eyes were slightly lowered and he said softly, "The Marshal did the right thing. He is the Marshal of the Navy, so he requires stability. From the perspective of the entire Navy, the most important thing about this war is to insert his hand into the New World, establish a firm foothold here, and seek for the future and slowly lay out the plan." Fujitora smiled and nodded, fully acknowledging it. "However, this is only the minimum demand of our Navy. If we want to expand our harvest and benefits, we must take enough risks. Those guys in the headquarters cannot afford the risks, but our G-5 is different. If conditions permit, under such circumstances, taking risks and gaining more benefits is what we should do." Jun bit her cigarette and blew out a stream of smoke. Her eyes were shining with elite brilliance. Fujitora is not a guy who likes to follow the rules, so after listening to Jun's words, he felt that what Jun said there is still some truth to it. Seizing the foundation of the New World and planning for the future of the Navy are the most fundamental and lowest demands of the Navy in this war. If you want more benefits, you have to take risks. This risk, the headquarters can't take the risk, then, it's best if their G-5 does it. However, does this count as disobeying military orders? Does it fit? Fujitora thought for a while and finally asked. Jun smiled, blew out a puff of smoke, spit out the cigarette butt on the ground, and stamped it out. Then, she looked up at Fujitora and said with a smile, "During this period, I have been so obedient that I gave you all an illusion." "What?" Fujitora smiled and looked at Jun with some confusion. G-5. Bailey has never taken a penny from the headquarters for military expenses. G-5 is a special naval force with autonomy in the New World. According to regulations, in the New World, G-5 has the right to make decisions based on changes in the situation. Independent response, orders from headquarters, are not our priority, do you understand? Jun asked in a somewhat domineering tone. Fujitora smiled and was stunned for a moment. He had never noticed it before, but when he thought about it carefully, it seemed like this was the case. At the beginning, the Navy headquarters gave G-5 great autonomy. This is not because the Navy headquarters has lost its mind. It is because G-5 is a special force of the Navy that wants to be based in the New World. They are supposed to gain benefits for the Navy in the New World of clouds and waves. This kind of under such circumstances, if the Navy rigidly sets some big rules for them. G-5. Can you survive in the New World? Impossible. They've all been fucked to death. Why can the G-5 Navy adapt to the environment of the New World and successfully drive a nail into the Navy? It is because of the special characteristics of the G-5 Navy. They wear the cloak of justice and act without scruples. They are more like pirates than pirates. It is because of their evil nature that they can survive in the New World. Now, when Jun talks about these regulations, it seems reasonable. At special moments, G-5 has the right to disregard its headquarters and act according to its own will. Before Fujitora could react with a smile, I saw Jun standing up from the stone pier, patted the gold pira hanging on his waist, laughed loudly and said ha 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 ha, not to mention, if I am obedient enough, how could I come to G-5, isn't this headquarters good? Fujitoro looked at Jun's laughing gesture with a smile. He couldn't help but laugh. Although he has not been in the Navy for a long time, he still knows a lot about his immediate superior. He knew that originally, Jun had a future that was not inferior to that of Kyuzan, Sakazuki, Porisalino, and others. They are the same general candidates, if Jun has any idea. Perhaps, who are the three generals of this term, not necessarily yet. However, Jun took the initiative to apply for transfer to G-5. Yes, this G-5 boss has never been a Navy man who likes to be obedient. Makes sense, Fujitora smiled and chuckled. Jun also knew that he had approved his idea. Okay, let's leave some strength as a backup and wait here for the arrival of Kyuzan and the others. Without further ado, let's head to the Totland Sea area now, Jun waved his hand and said. Soon, several G-5 Navy warships left the port. The flagship ship at the head is exactly the Jun ship with a pink rabbit painted on it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 563. Sabri Island. Lucci and Enilu are currently stationed on the island with some of their subordinates from the Warhammer pirates. The little leopard was standing on the port doing nothing at this time, looking bored at the sea level in the distance. In the sky, a few seagulls flew leisurely and screamed ah. It's so noisy, Lucci cursed a little irritably, then suddenly raised his hand and pointed it in the air. With a few taps of his fingers, the seagull flying in the air seemed to have been hit by an invisible force, and fell into the sea with a wailing sound. They who feed on fish will eventually die in the belly of the fish. Are you good at practicing the flying finger gun? Enilu came from a short distance away with a smile and said jokingly. No, this is what the queen taught me, Lucci said a little bit. Although Stussy has not been seen much on the sea since she followed Orgrim, and she quietly serves as her good wife. But Stussy's strength is still outstanding. Lucci had been living in the courtyard of Ogram before, and Stussy also liked Lucci very much. Because Lucci is a physical arts master who specializes in the sixth form of the Navy just like her. So Stussy often gave Lucci some trouble. After fussing for a moment, Lucci complained again. Brother Enilu, why did Mr. Hammer arrange such an unfortunate task for us? Guarding Sabri Island, what's the point of guarding? Attack is the best defense. Just like we will cut off the Whitebeard pirates' line, even if there is a high probability that it will not be used, the Whitebeard pirates will still send people to cut our line. This is the line, and someone will come looking for trouble, Enilu said very calmly. He didn't look anxious at all. What if no one really comes? Lucci couldn't help but ask. Then wait until Lord Orgrim starts taking action, the core of all plans will shift to Lord Orgrim's side. In the final analysis, the war we are launching now is a display of power. Really, what can affect the outcome of the war depends on the duel between Lord Orgrim and that guy from Newgate, Enilu said softly. He is right, no matter what the new world is like now. It is just a display of strength and a form of putting chips on the table. What is compared is the overall strength. Orgrim wants to fight for the strongest personal reputation. The Warhammer pirates also want to fight for the collective reputation of the strongest pirate group. It's nothing more than that. But really, the one who can change the outcome of the war and make the final conclusion for the war still depends on the duel between Grimm and Newgate is enough. This is the case in most worlds where the strong are respected by their personal strength. Even though the Navy has more than 1 million troops, in the final analysis, big pirates like Orgrim and others are like this. Is it the 1 million strong army that we are afraid of? No, it's not the endless stream of senior generals of the Navy headed by Sengoku. They are the ones who can threaten the pirate bosses. The 1 million strong army is just embellishment, is just a force used to control grassroots forces. Did you hear that? That damn witch Sphinx is heading to the Totland Sea. I was laughing at her for being the last to leave, but I didn't expect that as soon as she set off, she went to the first war hotspot. Now I feel a little regretful. I should have made an exchange with her in the first place, Lucci said through gritted teeth. Ha 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 ha, don't be so petty. I haven't told you yet. Dai Peng failed, and she will come to our side soon, Anilu said with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, Lucci was stunned for a moment, and then asked in surprise, Dai Peng lost? Impossible. She is very strong. There was no loss to Thatch, who was defeated by the Whitebeard pirates, but the Navy's G-5 unit intervened. The general candidates, Momo Sejun and Fujitora, were all there with a smile. Dai Peng even teamed up with Thatch a little bit. Only then could he escape from there, Anilu said with a serious expression. After a slight pause, Anilu said again, now, the Navy's fangs have also been exposed. If nothing else, they should want to seize this Gateway Sea area. We must not only be prepared to deal with the Whitebeard pirates, but also be prepared to deal with the arrival of the Navy. Lu Chi bared his teeth slightly and said fiercely, if those bastards from the Navy dare to come, I will make them look good. Anilu smiled when he heard the words, and was about to speak. An alarm sounded instantly on the island. Both Lucci and Anilu turned their heads to look at the sea. On the sea level in the distance, a fleet appeared. It's the Whitebeard pirates. Lucci was sharp-eyed and recognized the somewhat blurry flag at once. Look, are you here? Anilu whispered softly. Then, before Lucci could speak again, Anilu took out the phone bug he was carrying and ordered directly to the phone bug observation tower, find out it's the Whitebeard pirate. Someone from the group is coming, so hurry up. Not long after, a voice came from the phone, Lord Enel, this is Diamond Jose, the captain of the 3rd Division of the Whitebeard pirates. Listening to this voice, Enel's face was a little ugly. Diamond Jaws, he had fought with Jaws before. At that time, Foil Baista was there. Baista, Enel he can do it. But Kiazi, this guy Eniro has almost nothing to do with him. He can't hurt him at all. He is a very hard nut to crack. At this time, it is confirmed that the opponent is Kiazi, a smelly and hard guy. AI Nero felt very uncomfortable. Soon, the fleet of the Whitebeard pirates approached the coastline of the island. After entering the range of the artillery, no one on either side said a harsh word. At the same time, they started shooting at each other. The roar of artillery fire, gunpowder smoke, and explosions soon filled the battlefield. Cover, cover. Bring Captain Jaws' ship closer. As long as Captain Jaws gets on board, we can tear them apart. A small cotter stood on a pirate ship and shouted loudly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a cannonball hit the hull of the ship, exploding into a cloud of smoke. Don't worry about it, our mission is to cover Captain Jaws' ship. The little cotter wiped the soot from his face and roared. The next second, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky, and the powerful and thick thunder struck directly on the ship. The pirate ship was instantly blown into pieces. It broke into pieces and ceased to exist. I saw Enel flying in the air at this time, pulling a thunderbolt in his hand, and staring at Jose's flagship. Thunder fury thunderfall, Enel roared angrily. The thunder in his hand was released, and the powerful thunder light shot directly at Jose's flagship. Jose's strong figure was also on the ship at this time. Looking at the thunder, Jose's expression remained unchanged, and he exerted force under his feet, causing some cracks on the deck. The figure rushed towards the thunder in the sky at an extremely fast speed, and his body quickly crystallized, turning into a diamond man in the blink of an eye. "Shine crash," Jose shouted loudly. With his invincible defense, he just knocked away the thunder of Enlil with one blow. With the power of the counter-shock, Jose stepped on the air, and a burst of similar to the power of the moon step. The figure was like a cannonball, hitting the island directly from the air. At this moment, Lucci's figure suddenly appeared in the ground area where Jose was about to fall. Jose frowned, somewhat surprised. I saw Lucci standing there, taking a deep breath, and his body shape changed rapidly. The black suit on his body swelled up and turned into a half-animal leopard man form. His tail fiercely he shook the ground, drawing out the sound of explosions in the air. Then, his body sank down, his feet stretched out, and he calmly concentrated, and a powerful force began to gather in his hands. 6 styles second truth maximum will 6 king spears, Lucci shouted angrily. At the same time as the angry shout fell, he punched his arms into the air. The posture was just like hitting a vitality bomb. The powerful impact broke the air and made a sonic boom. The 6 king spear is a skill move that Lucci developed by combining the 6 moves with his own abilities. The largest wheel he was using at this time, the 6 king's gun, according to previous reviews, could blow up a warship with one strike. Feeling the roaring power, Jose was fearless. His body quickly crystallized and turned into a hard lump, and he hit Lucci's attack. The powerful force hit Jose's body, but he was not injured at all. But he was also embarrassed at this time. Because I can't let it go. The impact of Lucci's attack was really powerful. At this time, not only was he unable to fall, but he was also knocked out. There was a roar of electricity, and Jose turned his head in the air and looked to his side. Sure enough, Enlil's figure had already appeared beside him. A ferocious smile appeared on the corner of Enlil's mouth, and he wielded a powerful battle axe in his hand. With the power of lightning and thunder, he struck Jose with one blow and said, "Go to the sea, idiot." Boom! A sonorous intertwined sound erupted. Enlil's tomahawk hit Jose's head directly. Although Jose relied on his strong defense, he did not suffer any injuries. However, due to the consecutive blows from Lucci and Enlil, the figure really fell towards the sea. Like a cannonball that has lost its target. He is a devil fruit user. Now he is strong and able to withstand beatings. But when you get to the sea, you will still be drowned. Just then, a series of gunshots rang out. Bang 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 bang. All the bullets hit Jose's back and then bounced out. However, these bullets seemed to be very powerful, and together they offset part of the falling force that Jose suffered. Then, I saw a figure flying out of Jose's boat and kicked Jose in the butt. Changing Jose's trajectory again, he kicked Jose to the shore and plunged into the soft and loose sand. Although he was very embarrassed, no matter what, Jose had already landed on the island. Yizang? Lucci looked at the guy who suddenly took action and said in surprise. Wasn't this guy seriously injured by Doflamingo and Neiman? How could he be cured so quickly? By the way, it seems that Phoenix Marco also has very powerful medical methods. His ability. Different from Kiyozi's embarrassment, Yizang landed beside Kiyozi gracefully. He held the gun in both hands, kicked Kiyozi's protruding butt with his feet, and said, "Kiyozi, you're not dead." Jose suddenly pulled his head out of the sand pit, shook the messy gravel on his head, spit out a mouthful of saliva with gravel, and said in a deep voice, "How can someone die in such a small scene?" At the same time, Enlil also transformed into thunder and lightning and appeared next to Lucci. 2 against 2. Enelu thought with a slightly heavy heart. Whether it's Kiazi or Yizang, they are all long-established masters of the Whitebeard pirates. It's better for Yizang to say something, he should be able to take care of him. But it's very annoying to have Josie who can't be touched. As for Lucci, although Lucci is not bad, there should be some gap compared with the two of them. Kiazi looked at Enelu, and then said in a deep voice, Enelu, I will settle Bista's debt with you last time, this time. As soon as he finished speaking, half of Kiazi's body turned into a diamond. The crystallization of the stone exerted force under its feet, and it was extremely fast, like a wild bull, and crashed into the side of Enel Road. Lucci's reaction speed is also very fast. As an animal-type ability user, he also prefers to be head-on. With a movement of force from his feet, the strong half-orc form pounced directly on the figure of Josie that was crashing towards him at high speed. Leopard spots, Lucci shouted violently. But in the next moment, Lucci was directly hit by Xiaozi's arm and flew out. He rolled several times in the air, and after landing, Lucci's feet suddenly retreated backwards as if they were unloading. It took a few steps to stabilize his body. At the same time, Eniru also transformed into lightning, disappeared directly in the trajectory of Josie's impact, and appeared next to Lucci again. Don't be so impulsive, Lucci, that guy is not an easy person to deal with. It's best not to confront him head-on, Enelu said softly. Lucci moved his sore arms and said in a deep voice, I understand, brother Enelu. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 564. On Ninkelon Island, more than a dozen naval warships slowly sailed into the port. A naval colonel ran to the deck and reported to the figure on the sun lounger, Admiral Kuzin, we have arrived at Ninkelon Island and have reunited with the G-5 Navy. Kuzin's figure did not appear. There was no movement. It seems like he still hasn't woken up. After a long time, just when the naval colonel wanted to take a pat on Kuzin. Only when Kuzin made some movement did he reach out and take off the blindfold from his eyes. Slowly sat up from the sun lounger and stretched. Aha, Kuzin yawned and looked at the surrounding scene with some confusion. It's pretty fast, I thought I would encounter some trouble on the way, but it seems that this mission went smoothly. Kuzin said with a smile. Then, he stood up, rubbed his neck, and asked, where's Porisalino? General Porisalino has already landed on the island, the naval colonel responded. Kuzin smacked his lips and said, why is this guy so active this time? Could it be that the marshal secretly paid him a subsidy? After complaining, Kuzin picked up his justice cloak with the general's epaulets from the sun lounger, put it on his body, and then said, let's go and meet that guy in Jun. Speaking of which, I haven't seen her for a while. Soon, Kuzin stepped off the warship. The harbor was full of navies. But it can still be seen at a glance that these navies belong to two different teams. After all, there is a group of Marines who, although wearing navy uniforms, look just like pirates. He looks very vicious. There is no doubt that this group of people is the navy of G-5. At this time Porisalino was standing there, listening to some report. Kuzin looked around and walked over with some strangeness. The above is the current situation of Ninkelon Island, General Porisalino, the G-5 Navy colonel, just finished speaking. Porisalino's slightly obscene face had a confused expression. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? What's wrong? Porisalino. Kuzin asked first. Then he looked at the captain of the G-5 Navy and continued to ask, where are Jun and Ichiko, aren't they on this island? Handling official business? Are there any unresolved issues on the island? The captain of the G-5 Navy looked a little embarrassed, scratched his head and said, report to General Kuzin, the eldest sister and the eldest brother Yuxiao went to the Totland Sea area and left yesterday. Kuzin. Are you really afraid you're kidding me? He finally understood what was going on with Porisalano's doubtful expression just now. We promised support, but the friendly forces are gone? What's the situation? Kyuzin asked in a deep voice. Well, the G-5 naval captain was also speechless. What's the situation? I do not know either. The eldest sister didn't give any orders. She just said that we should be on guard here to welcome the arrival of you two generals. At this moment, Porisalano, who had been silent and doubting his life, suddenly laughed. He shook his head and said helplessly, I haven't dealt with that guy from Jun for a long time, and I almost forgot about her bad temper. Is this really true? She didn't even listen to the marshal's orders. Aren't you afraid of going to Judiciary Island afterwards? Kyuzin was silent for a moment, and then said helplessly, G-5 the Navy has the right to do this kind of thing, and this is the most helpless part. After finishing speaking, Kyuzin glanced at the G-5 naval colonel again. Looking at his expression, he knew that this guy also knew nothing. So Kyuzin waved his hand and said, go and hand over the things that need to be handed over. Hand over it, you don't have to worry about it here. Yes, General, the G-5 naval colonel breathed a sigh of relief. Sister, you are trying to trick me. Fortunately, General Kyuzin has a good temper, otherwise I would be doomed. If Sakaski comes instead, maybe he was about to get punched. After sitting on a stone pier, Kyuzin took out the phone and dialed Jun. It didn't take long for the phone to be picked up. What's up? Jun's somewhat arrogant tone came out from the phone. Kyuzin was stunned. Are you so confident? People who don't know think you are a general and I am a junior. But Kyuzin also there was nothing he could do about Jun's temper, so he asked a little funny, hey, you damn woman, are you kidding us? Do you dare to ignore the marshal's order? Kyuzin has a very good relationship with Jun, so there is nothing to worry about. When the two of them were in the headquarters, they were not very polite when talking to each other. They even used to fight. After listening to Kyuzin's words, Jun smiled and spoke. Said, what does it mean to release pigeons? The order I received is that G-5 is waiting for your support and will act according to the original plan. What? Are there no G-5 people on the island? Yes, there is, but what about the back? Act according to the original plan. Was our original plan to go to Totland Sea? Kyuzin complained. Ha 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 ha, don't worry about these details, Kyuzin, the original plan is left to you two generals. Those who can do it should do the work. According to the authority of G-5, as the Supreme Commander of G-5, I have the authority in the New World, adapt to changes. As far as I know, major events will happen in the waters of Totland. I go to see it. Is it reasonable? Jun said in a rogue way. Kyuzin didn't bother to argue with her anymore. He also knew Jun's temper. Now that everyone has run away, it's impossible for you to get her back. So, what are you doing in Totland? It's very dangerous there. If you go there, you will be a lone army. It's impossible for Porisalano and I to ignore the marshal's orders and support you, right? Kyuzin asked with a serious expression. It is true that this place is dangerous, but there is no need for support. This is a decision I made as the G-5 commander. Kyuzin, if you are in the headquarters, you should know better than me, right? What happens there? The red-haired guy, the Big Mom pirates may be destroyed. Do you really plan to let the red-haired King Shichibukai become the new Yonko? Jun asked in a serious tone. Kyuzin fell silent after hearing this question. Porisalano's eyes on the side were also a little ethereal. The red-haired. He may not succeed, Kyuzin said softly. Maybe, but one thing you have all overlooked is the red hair. That bastard is not an easy guy to deal with. You can see the shadow of Orgrim in him. If you don't want to see someone who is not inferior to Orgrim in the future, a bastard opponent like Grim has reached the top. Now, he shouldn't be allowed to do whatever he wants, Jun said without hesitation. Kuzan and Porosalino were shocked by Jun's words. Yes, maybe if the Yonko is changed, this pattern will still be the Yonko pattern. It seems that there is no change in the Navy. Same. But is it the same concept for a redhead to be a Yonko and Charlotte Lingling to be a Yonko? But that guy is King Shishibukai, and our Navy has an agreement with him. Kuzan frowned and said. As you said, I am G-5, Kuzan. Jun said with a slightly evil smile on his lips. Before Kuzan could speak, Jun continued anyway, my reputation is bad enough. If anything goes wrong, just let me take the blame, G-5, isn't that what you do? So you're going to stop the redhead from dealing with Charlotte Lingling, Porosalino couldn't help but ask. How can it be? They were pirates and dogs biting dogs. It was such a good drama, why would I interfere? Moreover, we don't have that much power to intervene in the war in the Totland Sea. I just want to see if there are any opportunities, Jun smiled again and said. Kuzan and Porosalino looked bitter. So, what you said just now is all nonsense and excuses. As expected of you. However, they still didn't wait for Kuzan and Porosalino to speak. Jun said leisurely, what if I catch one of the Yonko? As soon as he finished speaking, Jun had no intention of talking nonsense to Kuzan and Porosalino and hung up the phone directly. Hey hey. Hey hey. Kuzan looked at the phone bug in confusion. Porosalino laughed, patted Kuzan on the shoulder and said it's nothing. It is said that Jun always hangs up the marshal's phone bug. This bastard, Kuzan cursed. Shaking his head tiredly, Kuzan looked at Porosalino and asked, ignore her. Although that guy always likes to do such messy things, he is not a. Of course I know, otherwise the marshal would let her be the commander of G-5. Can she sit in the position of candidate for general? Let's not talk about this anymore, let's do what we should do. Porosalino waved his hand and interrupted Kuzan. As soon as he finished speaking, a naval colonel quickly ran over. Report to the two generals that the situation on Sabri Island has changed, the naval colonel reported quickly. Kuzan and Porosalino's expressions became serious, and they asked together, what's the matter? According to the information from our surveillance ship, Jose, the captain of the Whitebeard Pirates 3rd Division, and Izzo, the captain of the 16th Division, led the fleet and began to attack Sabri Island. The naval colonel responded quickly. Kuzan raised his eyebrows and said, the Warhammer pirates may not be able to withstand it. On Sabri Island, it's the person with the Thunder Fruit ability, and Rob Lucci, right? Yes, General Kuzan, the Navy captain said quickly. Kuzan looked at Porosalino, and Porosalino also looked at Kuzan, as if he didn't understand your eyes. Kuzan curled his lips helplessly and said, really, I must go on a mission with Sakaski next time. That guy will definitely stand up if he encounters something like this. Then you two might get into a fight on the way and go your separate ways, Porosalino said a little funny. I'll leave the other two islands to you, there shouldn't be any trouble there. Kuzan said softly. The Big Mom pirates and the Beast pirates should start a war in the waters of Totland. So, in theory, they will not care about what happens here. Porosalino also thought so, nodded and said yeah. Kuzan then stood up and walked towards the warship again. Sabri Island was also one of the targets of their navy. Now, the Whitebeard pirates and the Warhammer pirates are fighting there. This is also good news for their navy. Kuzan is going to go there personally to see if he can catch any leaks. It is best to kill all the members of the Warhammer pirates and Whitebeard pirates in one go. It seems that all of them have forgotten one thing. When Jun ran away like this, didn't anyone inform the Navy Marshal, Mr. Sengoku? Don't you, the senior generals of the Navy, respect your Marshal in your heart? A sneeze, the Warring States Marshal, who was handling complicated official duties at his headquarters, suddenly sneezed. He rubbed his nose and murmured softly, "Who is talking about me?" He stopped what he was doing, picked up the teacup on the table, took a sip, and said to himself, "Count the time, Ku Zan, they must have connected with Jun, right? They didn't contact me, which means, everything goes well? It's a good sign." After smacking his lips, the warring states marshal put down the teacup and returned to his busy work. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 565. Sabri Island. At this time, Eniru and Lucky were fighting with Josie and Izang. Shine crash, Josie was still transformed into a diamond and crashed into Enilu. Lightning flashed in Enilu's eyes, and he was wrapped with a large amount of thunder and lightning, and he collided with Josie in an instant. The thunder escape armor was developed by Enilu, extremely powerful moves. It can stimulate the physical body and enhance strength, speed, and other qualities. At the same time, the armor condensed with a large number of thunder and lightning elements also has very strong defensive power. The moment the two people collided, a powerful impact was erupted from both sides. The person's body erupted, and the thunder element on Enilu's body overflowed, and at the same time, it was quickly filled in. "I can fight you for 10 days in this kind of battle," Kiyoshi said in a deep voice with a ruthless look in his eyes. Enilu said with a somewhat mocking tone, "That's all you can do, you can beat anyone, but you can't beat anyone. Not to mention, Josie is really in this state now. After he and Marco lost to Orgrim. Josie has been pushing himself, and his ability and strength have been greatly improved. And he believed that his defeat to Orgrim was because his defense was not strong enough to stop Orgrim's power. Therefore, in the following years, he focused on developing and enhancing his defense. So much so that even now, Newgate can't even beat Josie unless he shows his real ability. And precisely because he focused on enhancing his defense, Josie was very lacking in offensive methods. Most of them turned directly into diamonds, relying on their physical strength to rush past them like a truck, hitting people to death, and that was it. This technique is simple and very effective for ordinary people. But for powerful masters, it is not so effective. So Kiyoshi was a little embarrassed. With his defensive power, he dared to fight anyone. As long as he couldn't restrain him, he would be very arrogant. But because of his lack of attack methods, it is difficult for him to defeat others. It seems to have inherited the 50-50 reputation of Sand Crocodile. Even so, you won't lose, right? Josie said in a deep voice. While Enilu was wrestling with Josie, he was also thinking about the current situation. 3 days have passed since the war broke out. He was also thinking about whether to give up Sabu Island. After all, this island has now been beaten to the point of not having much value. The base on the island has been completely destroyed by the aftermath of the battle between these masters. The only thing that still has value is the island's geographical advantage. But it's still the same saying, if you save people and lose land, everyone and land will survive. If you save land and lose people, everyone and land will be lost. The Navy will most likely come here to cause trouble. Now let's kick the Whitebeard pirates in front of the Navy. After they finish fighting, the Warhammer pirates will take it back. In other words, after Lord Orgrim defeats Newgate, the Whitebeard pirates will not be able to defend this place. As long as Lord Orgrim can win, he will get it back sooner or later. But soon, Enilu dismissed this thought from his mind. Yes, it seems, this should be the optimal choice. However, this time the war will be fought as the strongest pirate group. If you take a step back now, you will embarrass the Warhammer pirates. Lord Orgrim gave this place to me, Enilu, to garrison. How could I possibly take a step back here? Thinking of this, a fierce look flashed in Enilu's eyes, and he shouted angrily, "Thor!" Josie, who was wrestling with Enilu, only felt the pressure on his arms getting stronger. Then, I saw Enilu's figure wrapped in thunder and lightning, getting more and more swollen. After 3 or 5 breaths, Enlil turned into the size of a small giant. Powerful thunder and lightning burst out from his hands, and with a violent blow, Joseph flew away. However, Enlil did not chase Joseph. Instead, he flew into the air. He became domineering after hearing this and observed the situation of Luchi's little brother. On the back of Zo, the elephant master, Luchi and Duke Inuarashi had a great battle. At that time, Luchi was slightly inferior to Duke Inuarashi in terms of hard power. But the difference is not huge. After that, Luchi was still working hard to increase his strength. Izu is actually about the same strength as Duke Inuarashi, but their fighting styles are different. At this time, Luchi actually had a 50-50 fight with him. Bang bang bang. 3 bullets were fired. But Luchi's figure was very agile and quickly moved left and right, and all 3 bullets missed. In the next moment, Luchi seized the opportunity, exerted force with his feet, and lowered his figure. While running, he landed on all 4s once, kicked off his arms and legs, and rushed towards Izo. Yizang's feet slipped and his body moved away. Luchi's sharp claws rubbed Yizang's cheek, bringing with it a strong wind. At the same time, Yizang did not hold back. When the two were extremely close, he shot Luchi in the stomach. At the same time as the gunshot sounded, the corners of Izo's mouth curled up. It's so close, there's no reason to avoid it. But the next moment, Yizang saw a mocking and disdainful smile on Luchi's face covered with leopard prints. Absolute dodge zero paper painting, Luchi grinned, bared his sharp teeth, and shouted in a low voice. At the same time, Luchi's originally strong and powerful figure instantly turned into a piece of paper in mid-air. But in fact, it's an illusion. This is the evasion technique and paper drawing method in the 6th form of the Navy. And Luchi is obviously the top master of the 6th form. I don't know if it's an illusion, but his technique of using paper drawings to dodge bullets is unusual. Proficient, as if it has been rehearsed thousands of times. Everyone in Yizang was stunned. The distance between the two of us was less than 30 centimeters. I, Yizang, a master of marksmanship, in this case, shot you in the abdomen. Can you get out of this way? Not to mention, Luchi really dodged away, and his movements were very smooth, as if he had really rehearsed. He landed on the ground with one hand first, grabbed it on the ground, and at the same time used his arm to pull up the body in the air. Twisting his waist, he turned around and kicked Izo on the chest. Leopard attack and hunt, Luchi shouted violently. He kicked Yizang on the chest with a powerful kick. Yizang was really stunned just now. Without noticing, he was directly kicked by Luchi. The figure was carried upside down by this force and hit the ruins of a destroyed fortress. Cough, Izo spit out a mouthful of blood and suppressed the injuries inside his body. He raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The look in his eyes was still a little unbelievable. How? Do you think your marksmanship is good? Let me tell you, you will be unlucky if you meet me this time. In the past 10 years, I have specialized in dealing with spear masters. Not to mention the distance just now, if I were to close it 10 centimeters for you, you wouldn't be able to hit it. Luchi looked at Yizang's disbelieving eyes and shouted in a very disgusting manner. Yizang's heart sank, but he did not doubt Luchi's words. Because Luchi had just used his strength to prove that what he said was true. His fighting style and method seemed to be really restrained by Luchi. At the same time, Izo also felt a little emotional. Who was he? An old member of the Whitebeard Pirates, the captain of the 16th Division. Logically speaking, in other words, he should be someone who can compete with the veteran masters of the Warhammer Pirates. For example, people like Karanda Neiman. But, how could a new generation coder of the Warhammer Pirates suppress him? This is really shameful. At the same time, Yizang's eyes became deeper. But soon, Yi Zhang discovered something was wrong. Why did that bastard Lu Qi look a little painful after saying those arrogant words just now? Yes, after Lu Qi finished his fart, he recalled how he got to this point. How many days and nights have I been tortured by that bastard witch Sphinx? In her hands, I don't know how much I suffered and how many shots I took. That bastard witch even calls it training one's own strength. Lu Qi has always been unconvinced, but just now, he suddenly realized something. It seems that the bastard witch Sphinx is not looking for excuses to bully her. Judging from this actual battle, I seem to be very comfortable against a veteran master like Yi Zhang. Could it be that this is all the work of the Sphinx? And once he came to this conclusion, Lu Qi felt even more painful. It's so uncomfortable. No, everything is my own efforts. I will never admit it, that bastard Loli, Lu Qi suddenly cursed angrily. In fact, Sphinx is really just making excuses. How can she think so long term? Dream on. Yi Zhang looked at this sudden madness at a loss and muttered to himself, the guy. He was under so much pressure. Look how hard he pushed the child. But this was just a small episode. After Lu Qi cursed angrily, his eyes turned scarlet. Carnivorous animal type ability users have a ferocious wildness. This is one of the side effects of their abilities. The same goes for Lu Qi. And often, the masters of the animal system can cleverly use the side effect to enhance their own strength. Lu Qi's voice trembled slightly and he roared. With a sudden force under his feet, he rushed towards Izzo again. A flash of light flashed in Yi Zhang's eyes, he raised his hand and fired 2 more shots, hitting Lu Qi's figure. Lu Qi, a little leopard, seems to be able to see through the trajectory of bullets in his eyes. His dynamic vision is extremely strong. He can avoid bullets with a few light movements. Die, leopard bites, Lu Qi roared angrily and grabbed Yi Zhang with one claw. At the same time, Enilu, who was observing from the air, his eyelids jumped and said, it's not good, just like me back then, I'm still too young to fight. Lack of experience. At the moment when Lu Qi's claws were about to grab Yi Zhang's shoulders, the corners of Yi Zhang's mouth curled up a little. And Lu Qi instinctively felt a dangerous aura. This instinct made the wildness in Lu Qi's mind instantly dissipate. At the same time, he stopped his movements without hesitation and made a sudden stop under his feet, wiping out a trail of smoke on the ground. He flicked his tail as if he wanted to get away from Izzo. But it's still a step too late. A flash of cold light flashed, and then a bloody flower appeared. Lu Qi felt a pain in his chest, and the force of the slash knocked him away. After rolling on the ground a few times, he stopped. He bared his teeth and clasped his arms on the ground, like a real cheetah hunting, and looked at Izzo with some brutality. At this time, Izzo held a short sword in his hand. This was called a wakaizashi in Wano country. It is a kind of sword that samurai often carry close to their body, mostly used for surprise. Izzo appears to be a master of marksmanship. But he is actually very good at swordsmanship. After all, he was a warrior from Wano country, a retainer of the Kojiki family, and one of the 9 red scabbard heroes. As for Eniro, the reason why Lu Qi said that Lu Qi was too young as he was because Lu Qi did not realize an obvious combat factor. Izzo, this guy, appears to be holding 2 guns. But this guy was wearing authentic Wano costumes. Looking at his name again, no matter how you think about it, Izzo should be deeply involved with Wano country. And what is the country of Wano rich in? Warrior. A powerful warrior. In this case, fighting Izzo, regardless of whether he can use a sword or not, has the method of a samurai. It should all be viewed with the standard of he has it, he will. No matter what, you have to be on guard. And Lu Qi, after dodging the 2 shots, seemed to have relaxed his guard. The moment he shot, the door opened wide, which was equivalent to giving his chest to Izzo to be beheaded. This is the flaw that Enelu sees, and this is the opportunity that Izzo seizes. Shaking away the blood stains on the blade in his hand, Yi Zhang looked at Lu Qi and said, "It has been many years since I took action as a warrior. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 566. A samurai should be loyal to his master. At that time, Kohide chose to stay with the Whitebeard pirates and wait for Kojiki Odin. I have been waiting for this for so many years. Over the years, although Izzo has not lost his ability as a warrior, he has rarely used this status to take action. Lu Qi slowly stood up from the ground and reached out to wipe the wound on his chest. Looking at the blood on his paws, Lu Qi said irritably, "This is the same position every time. When you swordsmen kill someone, can't you change the place? Last time, when Duke Inarashi killed him, it was also on the chest. This time, Izang was slashed in the chest. The location didn't even change." As Lu Qi finished speaking, his breathing adjusted slightly a few times, and the blood flow from the wound stopped. Return of life, this is really rare. Very few people can practice the 6 styles to this extent, Yi Zhang said with some surprise. The 6th form of the Navy. Although it is named Navy, in fact, because this combat skill is so widely spread, it can be leaked if anyone defects. Therefore, many people who use the 6th form, the masters of this power, are not the Navy. Of course, the main users of this power are still a large number of naval officers. Although the 6th form of the Navy looks very powerful, in most cases, this superhuman physical skill is used by people use it to practice introductory physical skills. Most people, after being exposed to the power of domineering, will gradually give up on the practice of this kind of superhuman physical skills. Because it feels that this thing is a bit useless. At most, they can practice the moon step. That's about it. How can your iron block, finger gun, etc. be as powerful as haki? But there are very few people who will not give up their practice, haki, and 6 styles at the same time. Orgrim is such a person. He does not often use the 6 forms, but people who are familiar with him know that Orgrim is extremely knowledgeable in the power of the 6 forms. Apart from anything else, he can also return life. At the same time, he has done it very early. He has cultivated the power of the iron block to the point where he can move freely, and he can activate the power of the iron block almost all day long. In the early years, Lu Qi admired Orgrim's perseverance very much. He can actually do it all day long. How much perseverance it takes to unlock the power of iron blocks and keep practicing. Later, he was able to do it himself. From that time on, he understood that Orgrim, it was forced. He, Lu Qi, is the same. You want to ask why? You have a bastard lowly in your house who shoots guns at every turn. Why don't you be like Orgrim? Otherwise, you might get shot one day. What should I do if I lose face? The return of life is the power that can only be awakened after practicing all 6 postures to a profound level. This means that you have 100% control over your body. Lu Qi, there is no doubt that he is such a person. At the same time, he also discovered one thing, that is, as a master of the animal system, if he completely controls his body and practices the 6 postures to an extremely strong level, he will have a great influence on awakening his devil fruit ability. Help. The awakening of animal devil fruit energy seems to be simpler compared to other ability users. It's like the bar has been lowered. But there are advantages and disadvantages. The awakening of animal devil fruit ability users is more dangerous than the awakening of other ability users. In this process, it is very likely that you will be controlled by animal instincts and become a real orc. At that time, when the IQ drops and the person loses his mind, it seems that he can no longer be called a human. This is not without examples. In fact, most of Impelton, the jailer beasts in the city, are losers who have awakened their animal abilities. But Lucci found that the more he could control his body, the more powerful he was in practicing the 6 postures. The more you can reduce this risk. There is no evidence, after all, he has not awakened yet. However, he just had this instinctive feeling, which he couldn't explain clearly. Lucci doesn't know if others know this, but at least the Warhammer pirates have no relevant records. He plans to do more research on his own so that he can know the answer when his ability is truly awakened. By then, if it is really what he thinks, it will be a very good news and secret for the animal type ability users of the Warhammer pirates. It just so happens that I am one of those very few people, Lucci said coldly. The next second, he moved again and rushed towards Yi Zhang very quickly. Yi Zhang also changed his attitude and no longer used long-range shooting to deal with Lucci. With a horizontal movement of his saber, he also rushed towards Lucci. Then, a close fight began between the two. Eniro wanted to observe again, but Josie had already rushed out again. Thunder God, second stage Jianyu Thunder God, Anilu said with a flash of lightning in his eyes. In an instant, his body of the God of Thunder turned into a 3-headed and 6-armed figure, and he hit Josie. The two of them soon fell into a state where neither could do anything to the other. Fighting all the way from the air to the ground of the island, after several powerful collisions, the two came to the port that had become a ruin. In fact, the war on the island is still going on. The Whitebeard pirates, the members of the group, and the Warhammer pirates were fighting everywhere. On the contrary, the port became much quieter, as if there was no one there. Joseph put his arm on the body of the Thunder God in Enel, holding Enilu's waist with both hands, he pressed it against the ground and pushed it backwards. In terms of strength, Enilu really couldn't compare with Joseph. Joseph's strength was rare. For a moment, Enilu couldn't break free from Joseph's shackles at all. The power of thunder in his body kept hitting Joseph's body. But the diamond-shaped body had extremely strong defense. Occasionally, charred spots would appear on Joseph's body, but it can only cause him some minor injuries. If it cannot hurt the root, it will be difficult to attack effectively. Seeing that Joseph is about to push himself into the sea, Enilu has no choice but to untie himself. In this expanded state, his body returned to its original size in an instant. The armed domineering energy on Joseph's arms lost control of Enel's entity. At this moment, Enel turned into lightning, he disappeared directly into the bear hug of Joseph. Joseph turned his head suddenly, raised his hand and punched behind him. Sure enough, Enel was there, and the next second, a powerful punch hit him. Enelu's thunder escape armor was filled with lightning, and the thunder element once again spilled out in a large area. At this moment, Enelu's expression suddenly changed, and as soon as the power in his hand was withdrawn, he was about to pull away from Joseph. The distance was the same, but his speed seemed to be much slower. A black shadow flashed past Enelu. Enelu couldn't completely dodge the black shadow, and was cut directly on his shoulder. Blood flowed like water. The defensive power of the thunder armor was actually cut open by a knife. A few lightning cuts were made, and Enelu's figure quickly withdrew for a distance. He covered the wound on his shoulder, he looked at the dark figure standing next to Joseph with some surprise. Whitebeard pirates, captain of the 4th Division, Sachi. Enelu frowned and whispered in annoyance. Sachi, Joseph looked very surprised. Sachi smiled and said, "It seems I'm not too late." "How did you come?" Josie asked. Sachi looked at the messy port, and then said, "Before that damn Catalina de Pen attacked Ninkela Island, and then the G-5 Navy people intervened. Unfortunately, Ninkelan Island was lost, probably in the hands of the Navy. After I fled there in embarrassment, I felt that I was too embarrassed to see my father. When I thought about it, you were going to Sabri Island. I did it with the bastards from Warhammer Pirates, so I came here too. I want to join you, so I can be considered guilty of meritorious deeds." Jose smiled and said, "Dad doesn't really care about this. After all, in that situation, anyone should have chosen to evacuate, G-5, it's really hard to do." Seiki smiled and said, "Yes, but it's still a bit embarrassing, so, let's kill these two bastards from the Warhammer pirates and get back the face we lost on Ninklon Island," Jose smiled and said. Sachi also looked at Enelu at this time, with a murderous look in his eyes, and said softly, "Yes, kill these bastards." Enelu's eyes also looked at the captain of the 4th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates. His brows were wrinkled and he looked very stressed. "Finished," Enelu said coldly. Before the two guys across from him could speak, Enelu continued after that, "Let's die together." As soon as he finished speaking, Enelu transformed into lightning and disappeared directly on the spot. The next second, he appeared next to Josie and Seiki. A stream of thunder slurry filled with lightning elements in his hand hit Josie and Seiki directly. "I come," Josie shouted in a low voice. He stood in front of Seiki. His strong and tall figure directly blocked Seiki. Then, Enelu's thunder and lightning power was completely blocked by him. "Come down." "Still so reliable," Seiki praised. "Ha ha ha ha, don't underestimate this guy Enelu, he is very strong." Jose turned his back to Sage, laughed and said. When the lightning dispersed, Jose released his diamond transformation. Fighting requires physical strength. Previously, Jose could not do anything about Enelu, so he could only choose fight a war of attrition with him and entangle each other. This is also very skillful. You need to use the minimum physical strength to achieve the greatest effect. Only in this way can it last long. No matter what ability it is, using it will increase the consumption of physical strength. Therefore, Chiao, during the fight with Enelu, I did not use my abilities without interruption. After blocking, I removed it to save my energy to the greatest extent, which is the best choice. And the skill is that this is very easy. It's dangerous. The rhythm and speed of Eniro's attacks are very fast. But fortunately, Jose can still bear it. However, at the moment when Jose's ability is released, Sachi's eyes have a fierce light. The saber in his hand suddenly stabbed Jose into the lower back from behind. "Aha!" Jose cried out in pain and instinctively rushed forward, keeping distance from Sage. At this moment, it seemed that Sachi and Enelu had made an appointment. Enelu appeared next to Jose very accurately, and the power of thunder poured directly into Jose's body. A fierce look flashed in Kiyozi's eyes. Although he moved quickly, he only had time to turn half of his body into an indestructible diamond. Then, the figure was blown away by the powerful power of the thunder fruit. After rolling on the ground a few times, Jose stood up in a very embarrassed state. Half of his body was intact, but the other half was in a very embarrassed state. There was a knife stuck in his waist. At the same time, he was burned by lightning, and his skin was scorched black over a large area. "Sachi! You betrayed us," Jose roared angrily. Although the injuries on his body were serious, they were not fatal, but Sachi's betrayal broke his heart into countless pieces. "Ha ha 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 ha, this idiot, he really thinks you are Sachi," Enelu said with a big smile. "Ha ha ha, that means my abilities are getting stronger and stronger," Sachi said with a smile. After the words fell, this Sachi changed. Soon, Katerina Depin appeared here. "It's you," Kiyozi said in shock and anger. But in his heart, he felt a lot better. At least, it was not a betrayal by his family. "I am too stupid." But Jose was still very confused. Katerina Depin could not have been on the island from the beginning. She definitely arrived just now. But it was obvious that she had no communication with Enelu at all. Why do the two of them work so well together? First, a bitter trick was used, and Enelu was stabbed, and Sachi appeared on the scene, so that he had no doubts at all. And just now, when Dai Peng took action, Enelu also looked like he had already calculated it. This, why? Is it because of the tacit understanding of the companions? Isn't it? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 567. Just when Jaws was thinking about this problem, Enelu and Dai Peng also took action together. Still without saying a word, the two of them attacked Joseph from the left and the right. They worked together very well. When Kiyoshi fought against Enelu, he relied on his extremely strong defense to force a 50-50 split with Enelu. Now, not only did he suffer serious injuries, he also had an additional opponent in Katerina Depin. For a time, those who were beaten were retreating steadily. A bolt of lightning struck Kiyoshi, and the next second, Dai Peng kicked Kiyoshi on the chin, kicking him up from the ground and flying into the air. Afterwards, Enelu's figure had already transformed into lightning and appeared in the air. He pressed Kiyoshi's face with one hand. The thunder element in his hand suddenly charged up, bursting out with dazzling thunder, and once again hit Kiyoshi. Pounded to the ground. After landing, Joseph forced himself away from the impact of the thunder and lightning. He rolled backwards awkwardly and punched twice. He knelt on one knee and held it up with one hand, breathing heavily. At this pace, you have no chance to unlock your abilities. Enelu smiled evilly and said. Yes, Enelu alone, no matter what, he is still a person, no matter how fast he is, he still has to have a rhythm. Kiyoshi is a veteran master after all. Is another guy who specializes in defense. After he grasps Enelu's rhythm, he can save his own energy to the maximum extent. But now, with Dai Peng here, her cooperation with Enel has a tacit understanding. Whenever Enelu's offensive falls, she can always make up for it immediately. It is impossible for Joseph to disable his own abilities and relieve the consumption of physical strength. Moreover, you have been injured, and the injury is not serious. Dai Peng followed up and said. How long can you persist in this situation? Enelu said again. The two sang together, seemingly analyzing Kiyoshi's situation and talking nonsense. In fact, these words brought great psychological pressure to Kiyoshi. Because, Enelu and Kiyoshi Dai Peng is right. If he continues like this, I'm afraid he will lose. Once he is defeated, Izzo will face two stronger opponents. When the three members of the Warhammer Pirates join forces, Izzo will inevitably lose. Hateful, Kiyoshi felt a little angry. What's more important is that he and Yi Zhang seem to have no escape route. After the psychological pressure was almost done, Enero and Dai Peng stopped talking nonsense and continued to take action. Jozu retreated while fighting, constantly thinking about how to change the current situation of the battle. At the same time, several Navy warships were already slowly sailing towards the island. This guy Kuzan, wearing the Navy's cloak of justice, stood on the deck facing the wind. He was holding a monocular telescope in his hand and was observing the tiny black spot that had just appeared on the sea level. That's the island of Sabri. The sky is clear and it's a good weather, but lightning and thunder often appear there. Sure enough, the Whitebeard pirates are already fighting with the Warhammer pirates there. It's an arrow, Kuzan whispered softly. General, what should we do? Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel stood next to Kuzan and asked. Kuzan put away the monocular telescope in his hand, thought about it and said put pressure on them to force them to leave the island. Our mission is not to arrest them, they instead captured the island. Yes, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel responded in a deep voice. Kuzan is not here to capture people like Enero or Jose. Because doing so is inconsistent with the Navy's plan. Now, the war is still in its early stages. The Navy just needs to hold on and do some trivial things. Look for opportunities to seize some territory in the New World Gateway Sea area, and just seize it. If here, the two big pirates like Josie and Enero, the core cotters of the regiment, have been arrested, then, Whitebeard and Orgrim, who have not yet appeared, will definitely take action. If you are not careful, the center and whirlpool of the war will be pulled into the Navy's camp. Come on. Isn't this Navy just sitting on wax? What if Whitebeard and Orgrim haven't chosen a dual location yet, so it becomes Marine Headquarters Marineford? Two great pirate groups emerged from the New World. Who the hell can stand it? So in this kind of thing, no one should play with fire. As for the Warhammer pirates and Whitebeard pirates, will they evacuate? Kuzan thinks it will. Just like Ninkellan Island before. Before the Navy appeared, Sachi would probably rather die on the island than abandon the island and escape under Katarina Depon's offensive. Now, I'm afraid Enelu and Jose will fight forever and won't choose to evacuate. But once the Navy intervenes, it will be of completely different nature. They are competing for the title of the strongest pirate group, and the Navy is not a pirate, so it doesn't matter. This invisibly gave both parties a step down. Kuzan thinks they should do it. At the same time, on the island, Enelu was kicking the knife stuck in Jose's back. A fierce look flashed in Kiazi's eyes, and he did not dodge, but hit the left side with his backhand elbow. Sure enough, in the next moment, Dai Peng happened to appear here. Before he could take action, he bumped into Kiazi's elbow. He was thrown directly out. Then, Joseph felt a pain in his lower back. Even if he could turn himself into diamond, this knife would have an impact on him no matter what. Clear, Enelu suddenly muttered to himself. Before Kiazi could react, he saw that Enelu and Dai Peng, who had just been knocked away by him, turned around and ran in the other direction without saying a word. Yi Zhang, Kiazi also reacted immediately and shouted loudly. Unknowingly, he was forced by the offensive of Enelu and Dai Peng to gradually approach the battlefield between Yi Zhang and Lu Qi. At this time, Yi Zhang, as soon as he drove away Lu Qi with a knife, he heard Jose's shout. He turned his head suddenly, and a flash of lightning came into his sight. Lu Ying, Izzo shouted instinctively, and his head was covered with powerful armed domineering energy. The next moment, a dazzling electric current hit the bridge of his nose with a swift kick. Fortunately, with Liu Ying's powerful armed color haki covering it, Izzo was still able to defend himself. But he was still kicked out by this kick. While the figure was flying upside down in the air, he saw another black shadow coming towards him from the corner of his eye. Hateful, Yi Zhang cursed secretly, and slashed at the black shadow with his backhand knife while flying backwards. But it was in a hurry after all. The sharp blade in Dai Peng's hand also slashed out with one knife, and Yi Zhang blocked Yi Zhang's slash. At the same time, a kick came out and kicked Izzo on the waist. Cough, Yi Zhang couldn't even reach the ground and was kicked out again. Mysterious meaning, Six Kings Spear, Lu Qi seemed to be waiting for Yi Zhang. The moment Yi Zhang was kicked away by Dai Peng, a powerful impact burst out from his arms. Yi Zhang was beaten by this blow. His eyes suddenly darkened, as if he was about to lose consciousness. At the same time, a mouthful of black blood spat out from his mouth, with some internal organs mixed in. It was obvious that he was seriously injured. After landing, his body was like a rag. Rolled on the ground countless times, extending for hundreds of meters, before Yi Zhang stopped. Then, Lu Qi saw a scarlet light in his eyes, his throat trembled slightly, and he let out a wild growl. But just before the moment he was about to take action, Dai Peng grabbed Lu Qi's arm and said in a deep voice, "Evacuate." Evacuate, Lu Qi was stunned. What to evacuate? Aren't we in a good situation now? Before Lu Qi could ask, Dai Peng explained people from the Navy are here, and the general is leading the team. It is not ruled out that there are multiple generals. Existence, not to mention, the two from G-5 are not easy to get along with. Lu Qi then reacted, glanced at that guy Yi Zhang fiercely, and turned around and left with Dai Peng. Don't you need to tell brother Enelu? Lu Qi followed Dai Peng and asked. Dai Peng laughed and said, does Enelu need to hear us? Ah, Yes, Lucci suddenly realized. Then he smiled and said his knowledge will be heard. I don't know if it's because of Jose's ability or some other special factor. In short, when Enelu fought with him, he was full of domineering attitude and wanted to listen to Jose's thoughts. But unfortunately, I just can't listen. This is not the kind of feeling where the opponent has powerful knowledge and knowledge to defend against such prying eyes. Before Enelu, there were times when he couldn't hear. For example, during the ability test, if you listen to Lord Orgrim's heart, you won't be able to hear it. It is also difficult for many powerful veteran cotters of the Warhammer pirates to hear their thoughts. This is because the knowledge and domineering between the two are working on each other. In fact, Katakuri's foreseeable future may not necessarily meet the future of the top masters. Whether it's the armament color haki or the knowledge color haki, they all interact with each other. But Josie, that was different just now. But Enelu doesn't know what the situation is. Is it just a special use of his ability? I'm afraid Kiyoshi himself doesn't know his ability and this method, right? But regardless of whether he could listen to it or not, Enelu still maintained his full strength and was fighting with Jose. While typing, he heard Dai Peng's voice. This is also the reason why Enero and Jose fight all the way to the port. Then, it turned out that Dai Peng and Enelu worked together very well. There is no need to say anything at all, as long as she thinks in her heart, Enelu will be able to understand what she means. Then, Josie was tricked. The originally stalemate battle situation suddenly changed. That's right, the battle just now was actually led by Dai Peng, and Enelu listened to her ideas and cooperated with her. However, Dai Peng is already more qualified than Enelu, and Enelu sounds cooperative, without feeling any pressure or discomfort. What's more, are we all still companions? Enel was not in a hurry to leave. He was a user with the Thunder Fruit ability, so he could evacuate much faster than Lucci and the other two animals. At this time, he was standing on the top of an old tree, watching the warship gradually approaching the island. Jose did not take action again, but quickly carried the seriously injured Izzo on his back. He glanced at Enelu with some resentment, then turned around and left. Both parties made the best choice. They couldn't determine what the Navy's true intentions were, so naturally they couldn't continue fighting to the death here. Wouldn't that give the Navy an opportunity to take advantage? In most cases, pirates don't do this. If appropriate, the pirates who had been fighting to death would occasionally join forces to deal with the Navy under such circumstances. This is the problem of the natural camp. No matter how hard we pirates fight, it is still the pirates' problem. But if your Navy is messing around, it's different. The meat rotten in the pot cannot be eaten by outsiders. Lucci and Dai Peng withdrew first, and Kiyoshi also withdrew with Yi Zhang. They can all leave, but Enel still needs to check the situation first. After all, this island still belongs to the Warhammer pirates. As the person in charge here, Enel cannot see the Navy no matter what, so he can just run away without saying anything, right? So where is the reputation of the Warhammer pirates? Of course, this is Enelu's own idea. In fact, Orgrim is very tolerant when it comes to dealing with the Navy. What's wrong with pirates running away when they see a Navy? Anyway, when he was young, Orgrim, in most cases, did not have such moral integrity. At that time, he was not strong enough. When he saw the Navy, he turned around and ran away. How about it? It's not embarrassing. Isn't that guy Roger running faster than me? He is still the Pirate King. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 568. When Kuzan's warship arrived at the island, there was no one on the entire Sabri island. Although determined not to retreat. But both Enelu and Josie had already made relevant retreat arrangements before the war started. Some things may not be used, but they must not be lived without. Alala, look, have they evacuated? After Kuzan stepped onto the island, he said to Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel beside him. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel smiled and said, "Is it because our Navy's deterrent power is very strong?" "No, it's just because the purpose is different." Kuzan shook his head and said, "If the Navy can have such a strong deterrent, the gods and ghosts will retreat wherever it passes. Then why the hell is there a need to fight for a new world? Am I right?" "An arrow," Kuzan's voice followed him out. Then, Anilu's figure slowly walked out of the forest and said with a smile, "That's right, General Kuzan. Since the purpose is different, can you give this island to my Navy for temporary custody?" Kuzan asked with a smile. His tone was very calm. Aniraz looked around, and then asked, "Excuse me, are you the only one here?" So many people from the Navy were there, including Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, but Anilu only asked if Kuzan came alone. The expressions of Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel and others were a little gloomy. They understood what this meant. Aniru didn't care about them at all. In his eyes, he could only see masters at the level of admiral. Arrogant. The people of the Warhammer pirates are really arrogant. Kuzan naturally understood this inquiry meaning. He shook his head helplessly and said, "That's right, what's wrong?" Anilu smiled and said, "If there are 2 generals here today, I will leave immediately without saying a word, but if there is only one, I want to give it a try." "What to try?" Kuzan asked softly. But when he asked this question, a stream of cold smoke came out of the corner of his mouth. Aniru's hair also sparked an arc of electricity. His eyes became slightly darker and he said, "Try, let's have a battle between me and the world government's highest combat power, the Admiral. How big a gap is there? You have learned 100% from Orgrim's arrogance back then." Kuzan said with a smile. "I have always regarded my captain as the person I respect the most. It is reasonable to worship and learn from him." Anilu nodded and said, "This is very dangerous behavior." Kuzan said again. No matter what, there was a touch of determination in Enel's eyes. Enel had no doubt that Lord Orgrim would lead them to victory in this war. And after this war, within the pirate camp, within many years, there won't be any big problems anymore. Lord Orgrim will definitely become the strongest. Their Warhammer pirates will also definitely become the strongest pirate group. By then, the next member of the Warhammer pirates will the goal, Lord Orgrim's next goal, must be to become the Pirate King. And Lord Orgrim is obviously different from Roger. The path he wants to take is more difficult. Perhaps, in the future, they will definitely meet with Roger. There is a showdown war at the Navy headquarters. He, Aniro, wants to test and measure the gap between himself and the Navy Admiral now. Be prepared for future wars. Call. Kuzan let out a breath of cold air, and then said, "I originally thought that you would be very sensible. We have already evacuated, but why do we still have to fight?" The moment the words fell, a bit of cold air came from Kuzan exploded. In the blink of an eye, the ground in front of Kuzan turned into frosty white. The cold air spread to Enilu's feet at an extremely fast speed. A flash of lightning flashed in Enilu's eyes, and he disappeared from where he was before the cold air invaded him. The next second, his figure appeared beside Kuzan, with sparkling lightning on his feet. He kicked Kuzan in the head. But before the kick landed, an icicle had already stood up beside Kuzan, directly blocking the kick. What's even more exaggerated is that Anilu's powerful kick failed to break the icicle. Just when Anilu's eyes were filled with surprise, he discovered that the cold air on the icicles had spread to his legs along with the kick. A powerful current passed through, shattering the invading cold air. At the same time, Anilu's hand flashed with lightning, and a lightning strike struck Kuzan from close range. Kuzan still looked calm, raising his hand to grab the electric strike struck by Anilu. Powerful freezing energy spread from his hands. Under Anilu's disbelieving gaze, the electric current froze. There was a buzzing electric sound, and Anilu's figure distanced itself from Kuzan and landed on the ground. He frowned and said in a deep voice, "It's impossible, how could the elements of thunder and lightning be frozen? You rarely fight against the top players of the natural system, right?" Kuzan smiled and said. Anilu fell silent. Kuzan is right. Although he has fought against many masters, he rarely fights against masters of the natural system. First, there are not many natural elements on the sea. And there are even fewer outstanding natural abilities. Most natural ability users can only be said to be powerful, not top masters. They are even a little exaggerated. Secondly, the big sum of the top natural ability users are in the Navy camp. For example, the current 3 generals of the Navy. In the past few years, there has not been a large-scale conflict between the Warhammer pirates and the Navy. Naturally, Enel has no chance to compete with the 3 generals of the Navy we're fighting. Looking at Eniru's silence, Kuzan said with a smile, "I am different. It should be said that the people I have fought with the most are the masters of natural ability users, such as Sakaski and Polu Salino. The 3 admirals of the Navy often spar together. In other words, especially Kuzan and Sakaski, the 2 often have conflicts. No one can defeat anyone, so just beat him." With the Marshal of the Warring States period suppressing them, there was no real fire, they just vented their dissatisfaction to each other, and at the same time it was considered a kind of actual combat competition between masters. Among nature types, it is true that one has the ability to restrain, but more importantly, it depends on who has better control over energy. Don't tell me that it's you who seems to be intangible and insubstantial. With the lightning and thunder, even the hot magma can be frozen when it needs to be frozen, Kuzan said softly. As he finished speaking, he stepped on his foot and an ice pick appeared, but his figure disappeared. There was a hint of surprise in Enilu's eyes, and he turned into lightning and disappeared without hesitation. Sure enough, in the next second, Kuzan appeared at the location where he was just now, with one hand missing and pressed to the ground. Then, the ground quickly froze. Very fast, not even inferior to Porisalino, Kuzan stood up and spoke softly. The moment he finished speaking, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Kuzan raised his hand to block it, and powerful cold air burst out. The continuously condensing ice layer completely blocked the current. The attack method is also very similar, Kuzan said again. After a short pause, Kuzan asked, "Do you know how I sought the initiative when I fought with Porisalino?" As soon as he finished speaking, Eniru had not yet figured it out. "Woolen cloth." Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel's expression changed, and he exclaimed, "General, we Ice Age," Kuzan whispered softly. In just a moment, the entire island, together with the sea area of 100 meters in radius, all turned into a vast expanse of white. Everything freezes. The speed and area of Kuzan's move were so fast and large that it was simply terrifying. This is something Kuzan had to keep in mind, otherwise the area would be much larger and an entire sea area could be frozen in an instant. You can imagine how powerful it is. "Don't worry, I'm sensible." Kuzan spoke at this time. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel looked at his military boots that were frozen on the ground. He felt helpless and scared and let out a sigh of relief. It was so scary. The team was almost wiped out by his boss. In his hand, Eniru is floating in the air at this time, with a very serious look in his eyes. There is a certain strength gap between him and generals like Kuzan, even if it is not big, there must be. Now it seems, I have almost no experience in fighting against natural masters like Kuzan. Kuzan seems to be very skilled in this aspect. This, to a certain extent, widens the gap between the two. That is, change the battle venue to my home court, Kuzan answered his question just now. The natural system can be considered to have different divisions. Generally speaking, it is divided into natural systems such as Kuzan and Sakaski, which can be substantially shaped. create absolutely substantial elements. The other type is non-plastic natural systems like Porosalino and Enero, most of which use invisible and immaterial power. Perhaps, they can all use lightning and beams to a certain extent. Turn it into a physical entity. For example, Porosalino's Tiankanjiun sword or something. However, they Jedi can't do it. Like Sakazuki and Kyuzen, they can change everything with a single move. There is no comparison between the two, each has its own advantages and disadvantages. And Kyuzen, when dealing with Porosalino, will immediately turn the venue into his home court. This can be regarded as seizing the initiative. Now, Enelu is a little embarrassed, it is difficult for him to land. The ground is completely frozen. The ice layer is an extension of Kyuzen. Who knows what will happen if it falls on the ice layer? But Enelu is not completely stuck. He thought for a moment, and not only did the figure not land, but it flew high into the sky again. He had come to his senses. Kyuzen seemed to be trying to help the enemy, explaining something to him. In fact, his words were leading him into a pit. Why should I care what you Kyuzen wants to do? I just need to give full play to my abilities and advantages. Enel was in the air, raised his hand, and powerful thunder power burst out from his body, instantly charging the clouds in the sky with enough electrical energy. Kyuzen looked at this scene, smacked his lips and said, "It's not that easy to fool. No matter what means you have, I will crush everything in front of me with the force of thunder," Enelu shouted in the air. As he finished speaking, his arm that was originally pointing to the sky suddenly pulled down, and a dazzling arc of electricity appeared between his 5 fingers. "Thunder wrath 10,000 thunders," Enelu roared angrily. Lightning and thunder pierced the sky. The dense clouds began to continuously release powerful thunder and lightning power. "This is," Kyuzen said with a hint of surprise in his eyes. The next second, a thunder column fell from the sky and struck him directly. Kyuzen did not move, and the powerful freezing air exploded, freezing half of the down thunder pillar. The powerful freezing air is constantly eroding upwards. And the power of thunder and lightning in the clouds is also constantly eroding downwards. A large number of ice cubes exploded from the sky and fell. Kyuzen did not observe this situation, nor was he wrestling at all. For him, this is easy. He looked at the entire island, and then said to Flying Squirrel and the others, "You guys board the ship." "General," the Flying Squirrel said in surprise. As soon as he finished speaking, there was another thick pillar of thunder in the distance. It fell from the sky and hit the ground hard. It destroyed everything there and set off a violent explosion. "That guy wants to bring the entire island into his attack range and seize the initiative from me. Kyuzen has already seen Anelu's plan. Then, Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel and the rest of the Navy will only become a constraint for Kyuzen if they stay here." Yes, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel no longer hesitated. In just a few moments of this conversation, the dark clouds over the island lowered again. Then, several thunder pillars fell from the sky and blossomed on all sides of the island. It felt like a thunderous doomsday. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 569. Eternal Night Sea Avalon. Orgrim still hasn't left here at this time. In his house, Orgrim was sitting on his sofa, holding a phone bug in his hand. "What were you talking to the person on the other side of the phone?" "Ha ha ha ha, just destroy it, it's not a big deal." Orgrim laughed. "To some extent, in terms of face, we are a little brighter than the Whitebeard pirates. After all, their territory was occupied by the Navy, and our territory was destroyed in the war. The nature is different." Plank reports from the telephone bug. "Yes, but that guy from Enelu is very hard-working. After fighting with Joseph for 3 days, he can still fight with Kyuzen all day and night." "Ha ha ha, Orgrim smiled. That's right, the war on Sabri Island has come to an end. Enel lost. After a day and night of hard fighting, he was defeated by Kuzan and fled in panic. Of course, Kuzan had no intention of pursuing him. Perhaps if the battle with Josie hadn't been ahead, Anilu would have been able to tangle with Kuzan again, but the final result should not have been changed. The confrontation between the two natural systems not only completely changed the climate of Sabri Island. After that, Anilu, who had no scruples, had a determined attitude that even if it was destroyed, he would not leave it to the navy. He just destroyed this island. But that's fine. Indeed, at this level, the Warhammer pirates have defeated the Whitebeard pirates once. First of all, if Kiazi and the others failed in their attack, they were already at a disadvantage. Then, Ninkelon Island was captured by the navy. But Sabri Island, which belonged to the Warhammer pirates, was destroyed. This is stronger proof. It was quite a fight, but the injuries were serious because of it, and he might not be able to continue to participate in subsequent wars. Plank said softly. Tell him to report to Nightingale, this guy. Orgrim smiled again and said. But Mr. Hammer, on the surface, it seems that we and Whitebeard have no way out. The Navy's intention has been achieved. It is said that Kaido and Charlotte Lingling's territory in the Portal Sea area has been occupied by Porisalino. It was lifted. Plank exchange report. After all, the Navy is also afraid that we will fight from the New World. They close the door first. No matter how we fight in the New World, it will still be within the tolerable range, Orgrim said with a smile. Once the Navy takes action, it will forcibly seize control of the sea area at the gateway to the New World. In Orgrim's view, on the one hand, it should be the warring states' plan to prepare for the future. On the other hand, they are also worried that something unexpected will happen and the war will spread from the New World. That's why we are so anxious to seize the Portal Sea area. This is equivalent to closing the door to the New World. You pirates, you can fight however you want inside, as long as you don't come out. Otherwise, it is simply to seize territory, and the Navy does not need to be in such a hurry. Wouldn't it be more low-key to wait until the war gets more intense and everyone's attention is diverted before taking action? Safer. This is the truth. Gangplank thought for a moment and then responded. Orgrim asked, have you finished the task assigned to you? Have you found the whereabouts of that guy from Newgate? The reason why Orgrim did not leave Avalon was, on the one hand, because the war was not hot enough. It was not yet time for him to take action. On the other hand, it was also because Newgate could not be found. Plank, in this war, the intelligence department is still not responsible for frontal combat. He wants to be Orgrim's eyes, keeping an eye on the entire New World and observing this war. This will allow Orgrim to adjust the rhythm of the war at any time. On the other hand, it is to find out the whereabouts of this guy Newgate. Newgate is missing now. Undoubtedly, this is one of his ways to find the initiative in the war. The war was started by Orgrim, and the innate initiative, the power, is in the hands of Orgrim. But how long the initiative can be held in the future depends on the capabilities of each force. Newgate is looking for the initiative now. As long as he doesn't appear, the Whitebeard pirates, the fiercest battle between the pirates and the Warhammer pirates, will not break out for the time being. What variables might there be in this? As for Orgrim, he did not hide anything. People all over the world, as long as if you pay a little attention, you will know. He is the king of the night, Hosgarot Orgrim. He is in Avalon in the Sea of Eternal Night. He hasn't even moved his butt. But who dares to come here to cause trouble for him? To be honest, Whitebeard doesn't even dare. He is indeed very strong and can compete with Orgrim. But there is absolutely no way he can defeat Orgrim in the Sea of Eternal Night. As long as it's still dark here, in this world, there is no one who can defeat Orgrim in the Sea of Eternal Night. Unless a large number of top masters come. A group of people beat him, Orgrim. Whitebeard wants to fight Orgrim. A hardy battle, but it doesn't mean that he wants to die and be defeated. Then, he will definitely not go deep into the Sea of Eternal Night to fight Orgrim. The two sides are already wrestling in secret. No, that guy's whereabouts are not that easy to find. Gangplank said helplessly. Orgrim recalled that in the original story, Newgate unexpectedly raided Marineford from under the sea. That even caught Sengoku off guard. It has to be said, this guy's force value is ridiculously high, and his IQ is not low either. Not to mention extremely smart. In short, he is definitely not stupid. Without urging anything, Orgrim smiled and said, just keep looking. The current situation is still there. It's under our control, don't be anxious, don't get into trouble. Clear, Plank said something first, and then there was some movement from the phone bug, as if he was talking to someone. Orgrim waited for a while, and then Gangplank said excitedly, Master Hammer, the second master has taken Palm Island. Phoenix Marco was defeated and evacuated in a hurry. If we follow him, maybe Newgate can be found. Logically speaking, I never thought Beckman would lose. Orgrim said with a smile. As for following Marco, he doesn't have to worry about it, Gangplank will do it. But Orgrim didn't pay special attention to it. Marco is not a fool after all, and he can fly, it is not that simple to follow him and find Newgate. The title Emperor's Vice has spread across the sea for some time. Anyway, it must have been after the formation of the Four Emperors pattern. Because this title is used to address the right-hand man of the Four Emperors. It is a special title for the captain of the Yonko pirates. There is no doubt that the first in command of the Whitebeard pirates is Phoenix Marco, who has been famous for many years. Although Quinn, the first lieutenant of the Beast Pirates, has always been unconvinced, unfortunately, it is still recognized on the sea as Flame Calamity Ember. The Big Mom Pirates are a bit strange. Logically speaking, it would be natural for Katakuri to become the vice deputy of the Emperor. After all, Katakuri was generally recognized as the second in command of the Big Mom Pirates. But after the Battle of Butter Island, Charlotte Lingling ascended to the last position of the Four Emperors, but Katakuri happened to have a falling out with her at that time. This is a bit embarrassing. In short, the Crown Prince of the Big Mom Pirates is divided into two cognitions on the sea, and they are not unified. Some people think it's Pero, the eldest son, and some people support Katakuri. It's confusing anyway. As for the Warhammer Pirates, there is no doubt that Ben Beckman is Orgrim's most important right-hand man. He is the Royal Lieutenant of the Warhammer Pirates. The captain wants to be the strongest, and the mate also has this concept of competition. This guy Yin is a bit self-aware and knows very well that he is no match for Beckman, so he just admits it. In the Big Mom Pirates, I haven't figured out who is the real lieutenant. Moreover, both Katakuri and Pero had something on their minds and didn't care about it. So I was out directly. Therefore, in essence, only Ma-Ge is qualified to compete with Beckman for this false reputation. And Beckman had already defeated Marco on Palm Island. From now on, he will be the strongest deputy to the Emperor. Although Beckman has been arrogant more than once, saying that this kind of thing is boring, and only a fool would care about whether the deputy is the Emperor or not. But this time, he made arrangements. But left Marco to himself. On the surface, Marco is difficult to deal with. In order to maintain stability, he has to do it himself. In fact, who knows if he has any intention of competing with Marco. Damned Sundara, Orgrim complained. Then, without waiting for Gangplank to speak, Orgrim ordered, don't just focus on the Whitebeard pirates, focus on the entire New World, Boss Kaido, and also look at Totland. The sea area will be the first real hotspot in this war, although who wins and loses there has little impact on us, we must make preparations. Yes, Master Chui, I will send people to keep an eye on that side. Gangplank responded quickly. After chatting for a while, Orgrim hung up the phone. After picking up the teacup on the table and taking a sip, he couldn't help but smile. At this moment, Queen Stussy walked in. She was holding a shoriat in her hand. It was obvious that she was doing gardening outside just now. After putting the shoriat away, Her Majesty the Queen washed her hands and then walked to the coffee table. Picked up an orange from the table, peeled it, and while peeling, asked, "What were you laughing at just now?" "What are you laughing at?" Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, "That guy from Laughing Enel is really hard-working. Let me tell you, before he..." After a while, I finished telling the story to Her Majesty the Queen. Her Lady Queen also broke open the peeled oranges in her hands and handed half of them to Orgrim. Orgrim took it and ate it into his mouth, and heard Her Lady Queen ask in other words, "The sea area of Totland will be lively soon." "If it's as fast as half a month, if it's slow, I'd say it's at most a month," Orgrim nodded and said. "I don't know if the Sphinx is in danger there," the Queen murmured a little worriedly. "Although that bastard Loli is frizzy, she is still very reliable at critical moments and is not weak. My hawk is also there, so there should be no problem." "Don't worry," Orgrim said. "The red hair is causing trouble there. Katakuri is colluding with him. It should be right. Now, Charlotte Lingling also knows the twists and turns. Orgrim again, the Sphinx who killed Deifuku was sent to the Totland Sea area. I really don't know what kind of chaos will happen there. Katakuri can still hold back after knowing the whereabouts of the Sphinx. Angry. In short, the more chaotic the place, the better. It's best if they all turn into a pot of porridge and there is no winner." Orgrim smiled evilly and said. "Doesn't Boss Kaido count?" Stussy raised her eyebrows and said. Orgrim hesitated for a moment, finally he muttered, "Then I hope he can win." However, Orgrim always felt that Kaido, maybe it may not be able to cover the scene. To be honest, it would be difficult for Orgrim and Whitebeard to control this chaotic situation. They are not easy to deal with, and no one knows what situation will develop. But Kaido doesn't have much appeal in this war. As long as Orgrim can win, as a die-hard alliance, he will also win, and he will still receive a lot of benefits in the future. The reason why he went to Totland to look for trouble. Most of the reason is because he can't sit still, right? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 570. After thinking about it, Stussy asked again, now that Sabri Island has been destroyed, and the Navy has sealed the sea area at the gateway to the New World, wouldn't it be very troublesome for us to enter and leave the New World in the future? Orgrim smiled and said the Navy will never be able to truly seal the New World unless all the pirates in the New World are dead. As for us, after the war, I think Wulaoxing will invite me to have tea, talk to them about it then. This kind of thing is actually just a small problem. As long as the war can be won, Orgrim will become the strongest pirate. If the 5 old stars want to deal with that guy, Lord Im, they can only choose to cooperate with him, Orgrim. And before that, the two sides have already reached some intentions on this. By the time Maragio comes, this kind of thing will be a small problem. Now, let the Navy be happy again. As for the rest of the pirate group, how will they enter and exit the New World? Then it depends on their ability. What does Orgrim have to do with him? If we are an alliance, can we still benefit from him? But as I said just now, the Navy will never be able to truly seal the New World unless all the pirates in the New World are dead. At most, it's just a yoke around the pirate camp's neck. In the general direction, the Navy will gain certain advantages when it comes to entering and exiting the New World. I see, Queen Stussy nodded. After smiling, she stood up and said, I'm going to see if Andre is lazy. Before my hawk leaves, he wants me to supervise him more. Well, go for it. Orgrim said with a smile. At the same time, near the waters of Totland's Cake Island, Katakuri was on the ship of the red-haired pirates. Yes, the red-haired pirates have all the members secretly entered the New World. It was under the cover of the joint efforts of the Navy and the Big Mom pirates. They had already come in. But they thought they were hiding. In fact, they learned about Shanks from Fergo in Orgrim. After entering the New World secretly, it is no longer important information whether the red-haired pirates can come in secretly. Anyway, Orgrim will treat them as if they have already entered. Shanks is talking to cards at this time. Takuri drank. But Katakuri just sat here, with a full glass of wine on the table in front of him. He didn't drink, but Shanks, who drank one glass after another. On the surface, look, Shanks still looks bohemian. But in fact, he is a little excited. At least for now, all plans are running smoothly, and the development of everything depends on him. In the control and calculation of the Warhammer pirates, that guy Orgrim really chose to go to war with the Whitebeard pirates and Newgate. Charlotte Lingling also accepted her alliance. Katakuri is already on his side. As long as the next arrangement is proper and he kills Charlotte Lingling, this dead old woman, he will be able to take over the legacy of the Big Mom pirates. When the time comes, you have the confidence and strength to reach the top of the four emperors and compete head-on with Orgrim. Don't you really want to drink a little? Shanks glanced at the wine glass placed in front of Katakuri and asked with a smile. Katakuri shook his head and said, I don't like drinking. If a pirate doesn't drink, what's the point? Shanks complained. As he spoke, he reached out and touched the small cross hanging around his neck. It was something that bastard Orgrim gave him many years ago. That bastard doesn't seem to like drinking either. At the latest 1 month, the beast pirates will break through the multi-layered defense lines in the Totland Sea. At that time, the battle will shift to Cake Island. Mom is already prepared for the fiercest war on Cake Island, Katakuri said softly. While listening to this, Shanks picked up the wine glass and took a sip. His eyes seemed a little ethereal. After a long time, he asked, you said, what if it's done, those brothers and sisters of yours, like, Pero, will you join us? Katakuri was silent for a moment, seeming to be thinking about this issue too. After a while, he said, I don't know what brother is thinking, but I can't rule out the possibility. However, Smoothie, K-Legio will definitely be on my side, of course, provided we can win. We will definitely win, Shanks said very firmly. After he finished speaking, he laughed again and said, if I lose this time, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to compete with Orgrim again, or even, I can never enter this new world again. Katakuri glanced at Shanks, and then said softly, not necessarily, as long as you are willing to lower your head. Shanks was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed and said, ha 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 ha, you are right, as long as I am willing to bow my head, but it is because I refuse to bow my head. This time, even if it really messed up. In fact, as long as Shanks is willing to bow his head, there are still many people in the New World who are willing to accept his offer. For example, he can lead a team to join the Whitebeard pirates and become a captain of the Whitebeard pirates. But, is he, Shanks, someone who bows his head so easily? If it were that simple, he would have bowed his head long ago. Katakuri looked at Shanks and had some thoughts in his mind. After all, it is worse than Orgrim. Too arrogant. Everyone has an idea. Katakuri believes that the one who laughs last is the winner. Orgrim was able to bow his head and join Chiji's banner. Now, he stands at the top of the New World. Whitebeard doesn't have many years left to live. If Shanks changes to this method, he may not be able to follow the path Orgrim once walked in the future. Stop saying these depressing words. Shanks took another sip of wine and said. Then, he looked at the New World chart between him and Katakuri. It was an enlarged chart of the Totland Sea. Then Shanks spoke. Said, actually, there are two choices now. Let's see how we choose. Explain. Katakuri said softly. The first option is to continue to maintain the alliance. Let's join forces with Charlotte Lingling to kick Kaido out first, Shanks said in a deep voice. Katakuri's eyes flashed, also thinking about this option. If the Red Hair Pirates and the Big Mom Pirates work together, there is actually not much pressure to fight against Kaido. On the surface, it seems that Kaido and the Beast Pirates are pressing forward with all their strength. But in fact, based on Katakuri's intelligence search during this period, it was found that this was not the case. What really counts is Kaido and his 3 disasters. That's right, Jack, a reckless man, has finally become a 3 disaster. The other cotters of the Beast's pirates, as well as the elite troops of the Beast's pirates, have not appeared much. For example, the Esper Legion of the Beast's pirates, or that barbarian tyrant. The current information is that the independent pirate groups under the Beast Pirates are helping Kaido to tear open the Totland Sea. Once this hole is opened, Kaido will lead the 3 disasters, and it will feel like he is entering alone. After doing this, Katakuri always felt that Kaido was not here to start an all-out war. In other words, the all-out war between the Beast Pirates and the Big Mom Pirates is maintained on the periphery of the Totland Sea. And Kaido's real intention is to fight? Reminiscent of Kaido's character, Katakuri felt that this possibility was quite high. As for the benefits of the war, perhaps from the strategic perspective of the alliance between the Warhammer Pirates and the Beast Pirates, the real benefit of the war is Orgrim's victory over Whitebeard. The main role of the Beast's Pirates here is to help the Warhammer Pirates and contain the Big Mom Pirates. This is enough. In this way, Kaido's seemingly reckless behavior seems to be reasonable again. If Kaido really kills him like this, then if Shanks and his mother join forces and the officials take action, Kaido will definitely be kicked out. What about the second option? Katakuri suppressed this idea in his heart and decided to listen again. Second option, Shanks smiled, paused for a moment, and continued, find a way to disperse the power of your Big Mom Pirates on Cake Island, and then I will capture Charlotte before Kaido comes. Lingling. Katakuri's eyes darkened, and then asked after that, how are you going to deal with Kaido? If you can't beat him, just run away. Anyway, by then, on Cake Island, there is nothing of real value, Shanks said very nonchalantly. Katakuri stared at Shanks's eyes. Shanks did not dodge. After a long time, Katakuri said, this is too risky. Shanks nodded and did not object to Katakuri's statement. Let's choose the first plan. Let's kick Kaido out first. In the process, we can also ask our mother to put in more effort first, and wait for Kaido to be kicked away. We caught her by surprise and captured her at the minimum cost, Katakuri said in a deep voice. Unlike Shanks, Shanks is still an outsider after all, and he doesn't care about many things. But Katakuri wants to protect his younger brothers and sisters to the greatest extent possible. If Charlotte Lingling is killed before Kaido comes, then after Kaido comes, Shanks may not be so careful to protect his younger brothers and sisters. In fact, he may take this opportunity to clear out some of the opposition. For example, the big brother Perospero. Katakuri never wanted to kill Perospero. Okay, you have the final say, Shanks grinned. Without further discussing this topic, Katakuri asked at that time, if Orgrim still doesn't take action with Newgate, will you appear in the New World? In the end, will it be possible? Don't worry, to be honest, whatever the fight is like on Totland's side, and who will be the winner in the end, it won't affect that bastard Orgrim in a short time, and he won't be able to take care of this side. His main purpose in this war is to defeat the Whitebeard pirates and defeat Newgate. Not to mention me, even if the Navy comes to win, he may not care. Shanks said without hesitation. Katakuri stopped talking after hearing the words. At the same time, in the castle on Cake Island, Charlotte Lingling was also talking to Perospero, the only person she could now. What is the trustworthy son discussing? Before that bastard Kaido comes in, Your most important thing is to keep an eye on the red-haired and Katakuri, Charlotte Lingling said in a deep voice. Perospero nodded quickly and said, "Yes, Mom." After a slight pause, Perospero said softly, "The island has made arrangements. If the red-haired guy really has bad intentions, you can definitely teach him an unforgettable lesson." "How powerful is that thing?" Charlotte Lingling asked. "Quite awesome," Perospero said without hesitation. "Very good," Charlotte Lingling nodded. After thinking for a while, Charlotte Lingling said, "After we solve the problem of that bastard Kaido, no matter what the red-haired guy thinks, we must kill him." Charlotte was already suspicious. Lingling will no longer trust the red-haired pirates, regardless of whether Shanks has any conspiracy. After the crisis here is resolved, Charlotte Lingling is ready to kill him.